What's going on, guys? This is DerekJ Speaks back to you once again this weekend, this time to talk about AEW Double or Nothing 2024 live from Las Vegas, Nevada. Just went off the air and it is damn near close to 1 a.m. where I am. These AEW pay-per-views, my God, are they long. And this one was one of the longest, if I'm not mistaken. Oh boy. But you cannot deny that a lot of shit happened over the course of this 6-hour show, including the main event. I know they were promoting the triple main event, but the main event, the final match of the night, was Anarchy in the arena. The Elite versus Team AEW, Bryan Danielson, FTR, and Darby Allin. This is the third year we've had a Anarchy in the arena match, and they certainly went all out in this one. Justin Roberts said, "Let the shit show begin," and he was not wrong, because unbelievable, this match. I'm going to do my best to go through the events that occurred in this match. As the match started, before all the heels even made their entrances, we had Bryan Danielson and FTR come out. They attacked the Bucks. They attacked Okada. Then Jack Perry came out, and then Darby Allin came out. And at first, it was his music that was playing on a loop. In previous years, John Moxley has been in these matches. It's always been Wild Thing. This year, they started out with Darby Allin. Then Matthew Jackson got on the microphone. He said to cut it off, and then he wanted them to play the Young Bucks theme song, which they did. Then Danielson attacked him. He took the mic, said cut that shit off, and then he said play the best wrestling theme music of all time. And they did not play I Walk Alone by Saliva, Batista's theme music. Instead, they played the second best theme song in pro wrestling history, in my opinion at least, Final Countdown. So that got to play for a little bit, which automatically gave this match 3 stars in my opinion, because Final Countdown is an epic song. And of course, the crowd was singing along to it. The song was blasting in the arena, by the way, so it was even louder. And then the image of all these guys fighting everywhere, it did make for a really cool image, although it is very difficult to watch these Anarchy in the arena matches and these stadium stampedes and all this stuff, because it's just such frenetic action going on and all the cuts in between where everyone is. It's a lot. But even with the music playing, I still thought it was cool. Eventually they cut the music off, but there was that. So where do I even begin? I can't even get into every single thing that happened, but let's go straight to Darby Allin and Jack Perry, who were two of the main focal points of this match. They were fighting in a parking garage, and at one point Darby tried to drown Jack Perry in some cooler, some ice water cooler with drinks and all that stuff into it. They cut back to in the arena, in the ring side area, a bunch of fighting going on with the other people. Eventually they cut back to the parking garage, and all we see is Jack Perry driving a bus with the word scapegoat spray painted on the side of it, and he rams this bus into just this giant pile of stuff. And we, as the viewers, were led to believe, and even the commentators weren't too sure, we're all led to believe that Darby Allin was in that pile, playing off of the fact that in real life, Darby got hit by a bus in New York like a month ago. So I guess that was the idea there. Eventually, Darby did drag himself out into the arena, down to the ring. He was fighting with Okada, who at one point stomped on his recently repaired broken foot. But Darby ended up hitting him with a code red and went for the cover, but it was only good for a 2 count. The Bucks, they powerbombed Darby outside onto a pile of steel chairs all set up. And then they dragged him up the entranceway onto the stage, onto their special entrance elevator, and they told whoever to lower the elevator. So down went Darby, and out of the way he went. Then the Bucks delivered a pile driver on Bryan Danielson onto the giant poker chips that are a part of the set. Okada dove off of the stage and gave an elbow drop onto Dax Harwood through a table. Meanwhile, Nicholas swanton off of part of the stage, off of part of the set, down onto Cash Wheeler through a table. We then see Jack Perry reappear backstage, and he walks by what is essentially the gorilla position, and he sees Tony Khan, the same Tony Khan who got attacked by the Elite all those weeks ago and then returned on Dynamite this past week, giving a lift to Darby Allin and his flamethrower. Here, Jack Perry finds Tony Khan and he abducts him and he drags him out into the arena. Meanwhile, Darby Allin has reappeared as well with his flamethrower, and he was spraying it and causing chaos, but he didn't do anything yet. Then he kind of backed up and he was lying in wait, and out came Jack Perry, who was dragging Tony Khan with him. And then before he could know what hit him, Jack Perry is set on fire by Darby Allin. Now, Darby targeted his pants, which looked excessively wet and glistening and glossy. So clearly they either just drenched his pants with water or some type of fire resistant material. Whatever it was, Darby specifically lit his pants on fire. So he clearly didn't want to hurt him too bad, but he lit this boy up. Like the fire, the flames on Jack Perry was insane. And the Young Bucks were there. They hosed down Jack Perry with the fire extinguishers, and they even blasted Darby with it. And the fans, who up to this point began a "We Want Fire" chant, were going absolutely nuts for this spot until they kind of got silenced a little bit because they were just in disbelief of everything that was going on. Things lead back down to the ring. We get some wrestling. Okada pulls out a thumbtack arm sleeve, and he delivers a Rainmaker on Cash Wheeler with the sleeve. We see Dax Harwood get blasted in the face with a steel chair, an exploding steel chair at that. All the while, the Elite, different members, as they were fighting off FTR, they were tying up Darby's legs and feet to a rope that was hanging off of a cable that was attached to the ceiling. And once they were able to do so, they gave the sign for the cable to be raised up, and now Darby is hanging from the ceiling upside down. He gets hit with a super kick, not just any super kick, but a sponsored super kick, because the Young Bucks now have a Reebok shoe line, and so they were wearing a bunch of that gear. But Okada pulled out a special pair of sneakers that had thumbtacks attached to the bottom. And so they all delivered super kicks to Darby, who was bleeding and hanging upside down. And he proceeded to hang upside down for the remainder of the match, to the point where it got towards the end, but the fans started a "Please help Darby" chant, because this man is hanging upside down. This man who had a broken foot, who was hit by a bus, who has a broken nose, and who got seemingly ran over again by a bus backstage on this show. We don't know for sure. But now he's beaten down. He's been super kicked with spiked up Reeboks, and the blood is rushing to his head. He still has a broken nose, basically. So the fans were asking for him to be helped, and of course, there was no help to be had for him. Danielson is there. He tried to help him, I guess, but he ended up getting laid out with a running knee from Jack Perry and got pinned, and that was it. This match started damn near close to midnight and didn't end until after 12:30. So that goes to show you what kind of show this was. But the match itself, I mean, in a sick way, yes, I did enjoy it. It was crazy, obviously. When you hear that description, that doesn't even describe every single thing that happened in this match. But I'm sure most of you, if you're listening, you saw the match. I hit the highest points that I possibly could. You know, the bus and fire and hanging, all that stuff. That was the main gist of it. It was insane. Darby Allin lighting Jack Perry on fire is one of the craziest things I have ever seen on a wrestling show. Just the size of the flames and how they engulfed Jack Perry's entire lower body. That sight alone was crazy because it was a few seconds before the Young Bucks started using the extinguishers. So that alone was the most memorable aspect of this match for me. But the Elite winning was obvious. They gave the win to Jack Perry over Bryan Danielson, which I thought was pretty shocking. They easily could have pinned either of the FTR guys or even Darby, but they pinned Danielson. Danielson once again takes a loss on pay-per-view, and it's Jack Perry who got the win. So pretty big win for him. I know that's probably lost in the history of this match, but Jack Perry did get a pinfall victory over Bryan Danielson. Might this lead to a singles match between the two down the line? I'm not sure. But obviously, the hostile takeover of the Elite will continue, even with Tony Khan back. I don't know where they go from here, but this match was insanity. But it was one of 3 main events that they were promoting on this show. The match that took place right before this one was the AEW World Championship match between Swerve Strickland and Christian Cage. This match was really good. It started slow and was bogged down by a lot of interference from the patriarchy, which you had to expect. But coming on a show where there was so much interference in almost every single match on the show, you get to this point, this deep into the show, you don't want to see this shit. But it still worked. That's one thing I can say. I can say that about the Anarchy in the Arena. I can say that about this match. The fans were into it. They were booing. They cheered for when the heels got kicked out, when Mother Wayne and Nick Wayne and Luchasaurus all got kicked out and everything. So they were still into it. But it did take away from the match there. But still, Swerve and Christian, they are great. They are excellent competitors. And they went out there and had an incredible match. The match got even better from there. There was still a little bit of interference from Nick Wayne, who did come back out and try to do something, and it almost cost Swerve the win. But Prince Nana, who also got kicked out, he came out and ran Nick Wayne off with a steel pipe. So I thought that was funny. But in the end, we had Swerve hit a basically standing stomp onto Christian, onto one of the announce tables, and then back in the ring, they're mixing it up some more. And then as the two men are bouncing off the ropes, Christian is going for a spear. He had hit the spear a few times in the match. He's going for another one. And then Swerve catches him with a house call kick in midair, goes up top, hits a Swerve stomp, and then hits another house call kick to get the win. So Swerve's first pay-per-view championship defense is a success, and he celebrated at ringside with Floyd Mayweather and Q from Impractical Jokers. Although clearly Swerve was not posing with Q because Q was just off to the side, but Swerve's attention was more so on Floyd Mayweather, which I can understand, but that was that. So, really good match. Started slow, a little too much interference for my personal liking, but it was still good. And then the other of the 3 main events on this show was the TBS Championship match between Willow Nightingale and Mercedes Mone. These two had a damn good match. They were having a very good match in their New Japan match last year before Mercedes got hurt. And it's been a year now since we've seen this woman compete. She's been signed to the company. She's been on TV cutting promos that have left a lot to be desired. But I was just waiting to see her back in the ring And I knew her and Willow would go out there and deliver, and they over-delivered. This was an amazing match. These ladies killed it out there. And Willow, she's great. She's such a likable personality. She is a great promo, and she is fantastic in the ring. She has improved tremendously, although she was never really bad in my opinion. She just was never used to her fullest potential. But now, in recent months, she's been put in a position to really show what she can do in the ring, and she has proven herself. And Mercedes, whether it's Sasha Banks, no matter what you want to call her, she has proved time and time again that she is one of the best in the ring. Woman or otherwise, regardless of gender, she is one of the best, and she proved that in this match too. And the finish of the match, the outcome, the result, was never in any real doubt, and it was Mercedes getting the win over Willow and winning the TBS championship. She almost didn't. Willow did have her dead to rights with a doctor bomb, but there was an unintentional distraction from Stokely Hathaway and Chris Statlander on the apron for the referee. So Aubrey Edwards was the ref. She didn't see the doctor bomb and the pin. She did turn around, but it was only good for a 2 count. But in the end, it was the money maker, whatever you want to call it, that Mercedes hit to get the win. The big story was after the match when Stokely Hathaway was yelling at Willow Nightingale, and he was getting booed for it. And Chris Statlander came over and shoved him on his ass. It sounded like, don't yell at her, don't talk to her that way. And Willow, who was selling an ankle injury during the match, Chris was helping her out. She helped her out of the ring. She helped her onto the ramp, and that's when Chris Statlander lowered the boom and clotheslined the shit out of Willow. And worse than that, she took the friendship bracelet that is shared by her and Willow, and I think she ripped it up or crumbled it up or whatever she did, and then Stokely Hathaway, laughing the entire time, joins Chris as they leave together. So I thought this would be something that would play into the finish, but it really didn't. Although it kind of did with the unintentional distraction when it looked like Willow was going to win. I guess now in hindsight, you can say, oh, well, that was not so accidental. That was probably a part of the plan here. But they lowered the boom and they beat her down. So this will lead to a Willow-Chris Statlander match at some point in the future. Maybe at Forbidden Door. But good stuff. I'm glad to see Chris Statlander as a heel. That was the obvious outcome here. All roads were leading to Chris eventually turning on Willow. So they just got to that point quicker. And I'm 18 minutes deep into this review, and now we are getting to the rest of the show, which was a very long show filled with a whole bunch of matches, but we will start with the first match on the main card because it played into another big deal that happened on this show. Of course, the first match that opened the show was Will Osprey challenging Roderick Strong for the International Championship. These two had a damn good match. Placement-wise, for what Will Osprey has been doing on AEW pay-per-views since he's come into the company, this was a step down, but not a step down in in-ring quality. These two had a damn good match. Unfortunately, Will Osprey was almost killed by the Kingdom in a botched, I guess, diving doomsday spot. They hit it, but whoever was doing the diving, he got his feet caught up on the ropes. I think it was Taven. He got his feet caught up on the ropes coming out, and once he collided with Osprey landed damn near right on his head and neck. It was ugly, but luckily it wasn't too bad to where he couldn't continue. He continued the rest of the match. You would have thought nothing was wrong. And him and Roddy continued to have a really good match. There was some interference from Wardlow, but eventually all the Kingdom members got kicked out, and it came down to just the two of them. And Osprey teased doing the Tiger Driver 91, the same move that he hit on Bryan Danielson at the previous pay-per-view, and then swore to never do again, but he did not do it. But he did hit the Hidden Blade and the Stormbreaker and won the International Championship. So Will Osprey now has a title in his possession. So good on him. That was great. Great opening match. Cool to see Will Osprey with the championship. All good. But then after the match, after everyone left, Adam Cole's music hits, and out comes Adam Cole, who is healing on the crowd. He has the devil mask with him. The fans know exactly where this is leading because they already started to chant the man's name. And then the lights went out and a video played showing a room with a bunch of very familiar memorabilia and clothing, all belonging to one Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MJF. And of course, they play the music. Out comes MJF rocking some Triple H 2000, 2001 jean leather jacket attire. He looked badass, and he came out. Adam Cole wanted a hug, so he hugged him, and then immediately gave him a low blow. And he hit him with a brain buster and talked shit about Adam Cole. Then he proceeded to cut a promo. I'm not going to get into the full weeds of the promo, but it was a damn good promo. It was an MJF promo. Not late November, December MJF 2023 MJF promo, but a real intense MJF promo. I'm not going to mention every single thing he said. Obviously, if you are watching this or listening to this, you know what he said, or if you didn't, please go look it up because it was much better delivered than anything I could do with justice. He mentioned some lines like how he doesn't need a New Japan or a Vince McMahon to make him who he is. He made himself. And he talked about how there's not going to be any more bullshit with him, no more love, all that goofy shit that he was doing. It's going to be all hate. He is driven by hate and nothing more. And because of that, no one is safe. The devil mask that Adam Cole brought out, he still had it out there. It was still out there. And MJF picked it up and he was talking about how that mask, that stupid mask and everything that it represents can go straight to hell. And then he dropped it down. He stomped on it. He did the Ric Flair strut and did an elbow drop and I think a knee drop or whatever. And then MJF got into his contract status. He showed off a tattoo on near his ankle that said "Bet on Yourself" with the AEW logo on it. And he said, as of now, you can call him the Wolf of Wrestling because I'm not fucking leaving. So, to the surprise of absolutely no one, although to some people, because there were some people even as recent as a month or so ago who did believe MJF was a free agent and might sign with WWE, this was confirmation what many people, myself included, have known for months and months now, and that's the fact that MJF re-signed with AEW and he's staying there for at least another 3 or so years. Will there be a day that he goes to WWE and that tattoo will look ridiculous? Yes, absolutely, because MJF is still a young man and he has plenty of time to go over there, and he will. Believe me, he will. But for now, he's not fucking leaving. So great. MJF, once he was out here cutting this promo, it was like a whole presence got brought back to the AEW programming that has been sorely missed. So he is a great top talent to have back. I don't know if he's cleared to wrestle, but to have him back on TV now will be great. Will that increase ratings? I don't fucking know. But it's at least good to have him on the show because the show is better off having MJF being the full asshole MJF that he is, rather than any of the other stuff, which had its moments and had its places of fun and entertaining. But this is the version of MJF that we need. So glad to have him back. Now on to the rest of the show. We had the trios titles on the line. The Bang Bang Gang, Jay White and the Guns taking on Death Triangle, Pac, and the Lucha Bros. The referee got distracted and Juice Robinson returned. Juice Robinson had a severe back injury. He made a return and he knocked Pac off the top rope, and then that led into Jay White hitting him with the Blade Runner and got the win. So the Trios champs retain. Good to see Juice Robinson back. This is yet another match that I've talked about that had interference though, but still, it's good that he's back. The AEW Women's World Championship was on the line. Toni Storm and Serena Deeb. This was a really good match. It was way better than it had any right to be. And the fans were already cheering for Toni Storm, but with the way this match was worked and structured, it made Toni Storm come off as a valiant babyface. At one point, she was locked in a submission hold and Mariah May was ready to throw in the towel for her. But Luther stopped her from doing so, and Toni managed to get to the rope. But she, later on, was on the outside and she caught Luther holding the towel, and she thought that he was going to forfeit on her behalf, and Toni threw the towel away. So they didn't really do much to add on to it. There was no other further dissension between the two, but maybe that's a little nod to more dissension down the line between those individuals. Serena Deeb, she was working over Toni, but in the end, Toni hit an avalanche Storm Zero off the middle rope and then hit another regular one and retained her title. She got up on the stage, she laid down, and Mariah May laid next to her, and they cradled each other and laid there for a little bit. So there you go. This was a really good match. I think Willow and Mercedes was the better of the two women's matches, but that's not to discount this one because it was very good. Trent Beretta and Orange Cassidy had a match. Orange Cassidy, Jane played at first, but then they switched it to his old theme song by the Pixies, Where's My Mind? And fans popped for that. This match, it was fine. It was well worked. I just am not a big fan of the story behind it, but it is what it is. Orange Cassidy got the win. He reversed a triangle choke into a roll-up and got the victory. Trent looked absolutely stunned. He couldn't believe it. He left. He looked shell-shocked. He blew off Rocky Romero. Renee Paquette was trying to interview him, and he was saying how he's done and he has no time for this, and he left through the crowd. So maybe this feud will continue. I don't know. Don Callis was also on commentary, so there's something going on between him and Orange Cassidy. We'll see where that leads. The FTW Championship was on the line in a triple threat match with Chris Jericho, Hook, and Katsuyori Shibata. There were dice introduced in this match. There was a bag of dice and not, or die. Is it a bag of dice? Whatever. There was that. There were kendo sticks. There was a lot of craziness in this match, but nothing compared to the craziness of other matches on this show. But still, in its own right, it was crazy. We had Big Bill come out there trying to interfere. He ended up getting T-boned, suplexed off of the apron by Hook, crashing through a table. But it was an appearance from the bounty hunter Brian Keith that played a pivotal role in disposing of Hook and Shibata and leading to Jericho getting the win. He pinned Shibata to get the win. So I'm thinking that there will be a continuation of the Jericho-Hook feud for this championship. Jericho, he has his moments with this delusional babyface character that he's playing, but I still have no great interest in him. But this match also was pretty good. It got the crowd into it, and yet again, though, interference. We had an IWGP Championship Eliminator match. IWGP Heavyweight Champion Jon Moxley versus Konosuke Takeshita. This was an okay match that slowly turned into a very good match, and some great stuff in it. Moxley came into this match with an injured arm that Takeshita roughed up on Collision the previous night. I thought that would be an out for Moxley to lose, but it was not. Now, the story that the commentators were trying to say is that Takeshita had Moxley beat. He had him dead to rights. He was going to beat him, but it was Don Callis who encouraged Takeshita to inflict further damage on Moxley. He even at one point flat out said to kill him. and he introduced a steel chair, the same steel chair that he used on Mox on Collision to injure his arm in the first place. He introduced a chair, a bunch of chairs. The referee was distracted by this. He was taking the chairs out of the ring, and then as his back was turned, there was another chair still in the ring, and as Konosuke Takeshita was sliding back in, his face was right over the chair, and Moxley came off the ropes, hit him with a curb stomp, and then got him up for the Death Rider and got the 1, 2, 3. Jon Moxley wins this match. Liked the match, did not like the finish. I didn't understand it. I'm sure there is political outside reasons for this. Takeshita has wrestled for the DDT promotion. I'm sure New Japan did not want to have Moxley defending the championship against Takeshita, or definitely didn't want Takeshita to beat Jon Moxley and challenge for the top. Whatever the reason is, I'm sure it was political. I say, just don't do the match at all. Think of something else to do with Jon Moxley and Takeshita. If there is a political reason why this cannot be a championship match on pay-per-view, then don't do the match at all. Do something different for Jon Moxley and do something different for Takeshita, or leave them off the show entirely. You could have taken this match off. As good as it was, it didn't necessarily need to be on this show. It would have shortened the show a little bit. So instead of it ending at 12:38, it would have ended at 12 o'clock. Small victory. But regardless, it was still a good match. And I know the commentators were trying to tell the story that Takeshita could have won, but it was because of Don Callis that he lost. We'll see if they even add on to that. I have my doubts, but we'll see. And the last big match, there were some pre-show matches, but I won't really get too deep into those. Well, I guess I can. Deonna Purrazzo, she beat Thunder Rosa in what was a pretty good match. And we had a trios match where the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass defeated Brian Cage and the Gates of Agony. Obviously, it's Brian Cage and the Gates of Agony. All they do is lose. Why Billy Gunn had to be the one getting the pin, I have no idea. But it is what it is. But the last big match I'll talk about here is the TNT Championship match on this show. The barbed wire steel cage match between Adam Copeland and Malachi Black. This was pretty damn crazy in its own right. There was lots and lots of blood from both men. There were a lot of uses of barbed wire. There was a barbed wire baseball bat used at one point, and it was some insane stuff. Adam Copeland has gotten the mantle passed on to him from Sting as the crazy veteran doing crazy, unnecessary, stupid spots, because Copeland had Malachi laid out on a table and wrapped him up with barbed wire. And then Copeland proceeded to climb to the very top of the cage and dove off down onto Malachi, crashing through the table. In doing so, in the way Copeland landed, he basically landed on his feet onto Malachi. And after the match, Copeland was very noticeably, very hard limping. So I hope it was nothing too serious. While the spot looked kind of cool and the fans popped huge for it, it's very, very dumb. Just like Sting did a lot of dumb stuff in some of his matches, where he dove off of a ladder, crashing through a table. His face hit a table, and he fucked up his teeth at one point. Copeland basically did something similar here. I hope it's nothing too serious, but it is what it is. Eventually, these two got knocked out of the cage. This was pin or submission only in this cage match, so they exited the cage. And out came Buddy Matthews and Brody King, who teased like they were going to be on the side of Copeland, but they, of course, were still with Malachi. 3-on-1 assault inside the cage. They had Copeland beaten down when the lights started to flicker. It was red flashing lights, and then out from the ring, there was a hole in the ring now, and out from this hole was Gangrel. Of course, Adam Copeland came into this with a Brood style entrance. I think they even on the Tron said the words "the Brood," and then out popped Gangrel, who came up. He spit some blood in the face of Buddy Matthews. He laid out a bunch of Impaler DDTs. He got kicked by Malachi, but then Malachi got speared, and then he was locked in a crossface submission with barbed wire and passed out. So Copeland retained his title. He hugged Gangrel after the match, and like I said, he was limping very significantly, and hopefully it's nothing too serious. But in case you didn't realize it, I went through every match on the main card, and every single match had some kind of outside interference. I think the only one that did not was Anarchy in the Arena. I don't think any outside person directly interfered in the match, because there was 8 guys out there killing each other, and kudos to them. But every other match on the main card had some kind of outside interference. Even in a steel cage match, there was still interference. They left the cage just to invite interference. The world title match, unbelievable amounts of interference. It was frustrating by that point. Even in the Willow Mercedes match, technically Stokely and Chris interfered. There was some kind of distraction. The referees are all stupid. They get easily distracted by people. So that can be frustrating, but not anywhere near as frustrating as how long this show was. I know I'm talking about this show for a long time. It's almost 40 minutes I'm going on talking about this, but this pay-per-view, you can tolerate 40 minutes of me just talking, hopefully, but 6 hours of, it's too much. It's too much. I know AEW, I know there is a fan base. I heard it and I saw it from different people. People like it. People spend $50+ on this show, on these shows, and they want their money's worth. They want a full wrestling card. They're paying for a wrestling show. Kudos to the people in Vegas in the MGM Grand Garden Arena. They were going crazy for this entire show. They really did not lower their volume for much of anything. There were some matches where there were early parts of it where they were a little quiet, but as each match went on, they got into it. All the interference that I was talking about that bugged the shit out of me, they were into it. They were supporting it. Or they booed when it was necessary. They cheered when they got their comeuppance and all that kind of stuff. So the fans here were into it. And those fans are a good portrait of the overall general fan base of AEW and these pay-per-views. I just think that it was excessive. I think the length of the show was excessive. But even still, I do give it a thumbs up. There were far more great matches on this show than bad. Honestly, there was nothing I would consider a bad match. There was nothing that was ugly or rough. Too much so, in my opinion, on the entire show, including the pre-show. Nothing I would consider bad. There was some really, really good matches. Mercedes and Willow had an excellent match. I will say the cage match was pretty damn good. The opening match was very good. Serena Deeb and Toni Storm was very good. The world title match down the stretch turned out to be very good. There was a lot of really good stuff on this show. Moxley and Takeshita. There was some good stuff. But I don't know. It was just very excessive in points, and that's a big problem right now with AEW. It is very frustrating to remain overly enthusiastic about the AEW product right now, and I'm trying. I hope with the reappearance of MJF. I hope with different things now coming out of this pay-per-view, going into a new one, although we're going into the next pay-per-view being Forbidden Door, where we're going to get an influx of New Japan talent and probably some talent from CMLL and some other promotions that aren't really in the long run of AEW, aren't big priorities, but I hope we can get some entertaining television out of it. The ratings have declined. Whether you care about that or not is, one thing, but for me, that is just a sign of how much the product is not hot right now. And I just hope that coming out of this show, they can improve. They made some big announcements. We know coming up this week on Dynamite, there's going to be a gauntlet match to decide who will challenge Swerve for the world title at Forbidden Door. Speaking of world titles, on the pre-show, they made an announcement for the Owen Hart Cup tournament this summer. The men's and women's Cup tournament final matches will take place on July 10th in Calgary, and then the winners of both finals will each receive a world championship match at Allin Wembley this year. So that's cool. That's a very cool announcement. I hope both tournaments are really well. I hope they're entertaining to watch. The King of the Ring tournament was great for WWE programming. I hope it'll be good for AEW programming whenever that tournament starts. But until then, I just haven't been feeling a lot of the stuff going on, but I hope it can get better. That's all I can do, is just hope. It's not terrible. These shows aren't god awful. They're just, in a lot of ways, very uninspiring and boring and dull and uninteresting. There are plenty of stories being told on the AEW product right now. For the people who say that AEW does not tell stories, there are plenty of stories being told. They're just not all told very well. But all I can do is hope. So that's about it. Again, I know I went much longer than what I would have liked to have, but I appreciate you listening. And again, as long as I'm going, it's not anywhere near as long as these AEW pay-per-views. I don't know what the solution is. Start an hour earlier. Lower the match cards. I know some people don't have an issue with that, but I think 6 to 8 matches on these shows is good enough. Maybe have more of your undercard matches be 10, no longer than 15 minutes, but more 10-minute matches that can be just really good, and save the big 15, 20-minute, 25-minute matches for your main events. And let's shorten these shows, please. It is too long. It's very long, but it was still good. The one thing I can say about AEW pay-per-views is that even despite their length, they are very good. And this one was no exception. So, once again, thank you for listening. If you like what you heard, you like what you see, hit that like button, subscribe, comment down below, and follow me on Twitter/X at DerekJ Speaks. Until next time, take care, you guys.